Hello YouTube world! Today I'm gonna show you how I replaced the two front rotors on my GMC. Alright, before I get into the video of replacement, first let me give you a reason why I'm changing them. So the reason I'm changing it is because every time I tap my brakes or hit my brakes, my car vibrates, right? There's several reasons where a car would vibrate, but if it happens only and only when you hit your brakes, tap your brakes, anything to do with brakes makes the car vibrate, that means it's a warped rotor. And what happens is these discs, they get out of center, and when the reason for that is going high speeds and just slamming your brakes for whatever reason, when the impact is so bad that it actually takes these things out of center. It's hard to see with the naked eye, right? But they become off center by like a fraction of an inch. They're not true flat discs. So when that happens, every time you tap your brakes or you hit your brakes, after that your car will start vibrating. And that's all there is to it. Let's get these replaced out so that I can have no more problems with my brakes. Alright, so on this video I didn't use any special tools, no power tools, just basic tools that you can just get at your local automotive store. Alright, I'm gonna put this mat down so my knees don't get hurt. Crossbar, car jack, a hammer, just some tie downs to hold the caliper up, impact screwdriver with a T30 Torx bit, socket. I used 14 and an 18 millimeter sockets. And as far as wrenches, 14, 17 and 18 wrenches, flathead screwdriver, and let's rock and roll. Alright, here we go. So tires off. Got that's the caliper, and this is the bracket that holds the caliper in place. And here's the rotor in front. You see this Torx bit, it had fallen off. When I took the tire out, it came off for whatever reason. I guess it was loose. I just snug it back in there for now. Alright, and looking on the back side, the caliper is held together with a 14 with a size 14 bolt, which is this one. There's one up top and one at the bottom, holds the caliper in place, 14mm bolt, and the bracket, the main bracket, is held by an 18mm bolt. Same thing, one up top, one at the bottom. So we take the caliper off first and then take the bracket off afterwards, and that's how it goes. Alright, make sure that rotor can actually, move freely. That way you know that the brakes are not seized up on it. So once you take the bolts off, it should be no problem taking it off. That was the whole point of wiggling it, making sure that it's loose. And then now we're gonna take 14mm socket and take the caliper off first. One up top, one at the bottom. Alright, so the top bolt went fine, but take a look at this bottom one. You see the arrow where the back one, the back nut, it's spinning at the same time with the front bolt that we're trying to take off. So there's a trick when that happens, right? You have to grab a wrench and hold the back side while you take off the 14. Take a look. Look at the arrow. So we're trying to take off that 14, but yet that back side is spinning. So grab a 17mm wrench, right? And wedge it in there. Hard to hold the camera and put it at the same time, but anyway, so put the 17 on there and then put the 14 on the bolt, and you should be able to break it loose and spin it off after that. Just remember, if it keeps spinning on you, just hold the back side on it. Alright, and that is it. After this, just take those two bolts off and the whole caliper should be able to come off. Alright, grab the caliper. Be careful not to put a lot of kink on the hose on the back side, and just, I'm using some tie downs. Just use zip ties, tie downs, a piece of rope, something to hold it up. There's plenty of places to tie it up there, and secure it, and you'll be good to go for the rest of it. Alright, so that caliper is secure up there. Take a look how I tied it up. Use a tie down, just loop up top and put it up there. The only thing you have to be careful is, you see that bend in the hose? Make sure you don't kink it. That's an acceptable bend, which will be fine, but do not kink it. Be careful. That's the main thing to pay attention on. Alright, and once that's secure up top, so now we're gonna take this bracket off, the bracket that holds. That's next, and it's got two bolts in the back, right? That's the caliper bolt we already took off. We're not worried about those. Alright, so the bracket bolt is in the back. You see one is at the bottom and the other one is up top. These are the 18mm size bolts, size 18s, and we'll be good to go. Two off and the bracket will come on. Alright, once those two bolts are off, the whole bracket and the two brake pads come together, and you can just set them to the side. Now, next thing to do is to take that Torx screw off. if you remember from the beginning of the video, somehow this screw was loose, but if it was tight you would need this impact screwdriver. What it is it goes into there, and then you just smack the back of it with a hammer so that it would, you know, take the screw off without slipping. And then voila, just like that, the rotor is off. Here is the old one. Alright, now that everything is off, I wanted to give you a shot of what it looks like. So here's your lug nuts, and here's the caliper tied up top safely, and there's the hole for the little screw to hold the rotor in place. It uses a Torx bit on my car. And here's what it looks like on the back side. You got the drive shaft, the suspension, the CV boot, front and back side. You got the steering components, just a general idea of what it looks like back there. Alright, here they are side by side, the old one and the new one, the two rotors. To reiterate, the reason I'm changing it is because the car keeps vibrating every time I hit my brakes. Now when I'm driving without hitting the brakes, turning, whatever, there is no vibration. It only comes when I tap my brakes to slow down or whatnot. That is almost certainly always a warped rotor. You see how this is what the old one looks like. It's kind of hard to see how it's warped with a, you know, naked eye. I'm pretty sure they got tools for that. And here's the new one. So you see it's supposed to be a flat disc, right? So it warps off, and that is enough for your vehicle, you know, to cause all those vibrations. Alright, let's do it. Alright, time to put it back together. Everything goes back in reverse order. Of course, the new rotor goes in there. One thing to pay attention is you see this tiny hole on the back. That's where the Torx screw goes into. That screw holds the rotor in place once you know, put it on. So make sure the tiny hole on the rotor, this little tiny hole, lines up with that hole on the back side. Alright, so you can put the screw in there, and after that just slide the rotor in there and put the little screw in place. And on my car it's a Torx bit, and on yours it might be a Phillips head or what have you. And I used an impact screwdriver. I'll put the link in the description where to get that from. So what this does is it helps secure the screw without actually stripping it. You'll see in a minute how that works. So you get it snug first, and then you will get a hammer and just give it a couple of whacks. So you click it forward and you put it and set it in place, and grab your hammer, and not too hard, just a smack. Boom, that's about a quarter turn. And after you got it snug, a quarter turn is enough, and it's secure, good to go. Alright, now the next thing to do is to grab that bracket and put it back on in place. As you can see, I never took the brake pads off. If you want to, you can take them apart and put them back together, but for me it all slid out together, so I'm just keeping it all as it is. And remember, those are the two 18mm bolts on the back side, one up top and one at the bottom. And make sure you get both of them started and tighten them down. And I'm gonna fast forward through this process. Just make sure you get both of them lined up, started, and then tighten them down evenly, top, bottom, top, bottom. I'm gonna fast forward this now. Alright, the bracket is in place. As you can see, I didn't use torque wrench or anything. If you want, you can Google the Torx specs, I'm sure, but just make sure it's tight. That's all you need, really. And now it's time to put the caliper back on, and just make sure you take it off smoothly, not to kink the hose on the back side, and then just wiggle it in place. If the brake pads are nice and snug against the rotor, should be no problem sliding it back in. Put the top 14 millimeter in place so that it holds it in place. Then line the bottom one, and just be delicate with it, and because there's a lot of small moving parts in there. And just once you got both of them started, everything is lined up. Now it's just a matter of grabbing your wrench or your socket and just tighten top, bottom, top, bottom. Don't tighten one all the way down. Just try to go even on both. Get both snug, and then go around and make them as tight as you can. Top, bottom, top, bottom. I'm gonna fast forward through this process as well. Alright, one thing I wanted to show you is, as I was turning it, that the backside, the little nut on the backside where that 14 millimeter goes onto, it was spinning at the same time. So I put a 17 on it to hold it in place while I tightened the 14 on the backside. Just to give you a heads up, if it spins on you, just put that 17 in place so it holds it in place, and tighten the backside to 14. And just like that, the job is done. Brand new rotor replaced, caliper and all the brackets back in place. Make sure none of the hoses and stuff are kinked. Everything looks good in place. Nothing is loose. Just look around, and it's time to wrap it up. Alright, that's a wrap. I recorded the driver's side, but changing the passenger side is the same exact process. I changed both sides, and now it's time to go test drive this baby, and I can hit the brakes without having to worry about the whole car vibrating. And thank you for watching.